Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today I just wanted to go over a few highlights in the New Testament that are contextually, they harmonize with Enoch. If you know the Book of Enoch, then you'll understand the context of these passages that we're going to go over. And I want to start with Jude's epistle. This is probably the most recognized New Testament author who quotes from the Book of Enoch. Actually, I'm going to get this up so you guys can see everything. Hopefully that's big enough for your screen. If you want, I can go ahead and go with the full. And right now we're just going to compare Jude 14 and 15 with the 9th verse of Enoch, the first book of Enoch, the first chapter of Enoch. It says in Jude, "And Enoch also, the 7th from Adam, prophesied of these things, saying, Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000 of his saints to execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches which ungodly sinners have spoken against him." Okay, let's compare that to Enoch 1 verse 9. "And behold, he cometh with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment upon all, and to destroy all the ungodly, and to convict all flesh of all the works of their ungodliness which they have ungodly committed, and of all the hard things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him." I don't know if you need to take a screenshot of this, but this comparison right here, this is without question, this is the most direct reference to the Book of Enoch that is found in the New Testament. Okay, both the content and the phrasing of these two passages are so similar that it would be unreasonable to assume Jude was not influenced by Enoch. Okay, we can't get around or deny that Jude's understanding was shaped by the Book of Enoch. Okay, now why is this important? Well, as I've found, this portion of Jude's epistle remains a random generalized thought if you don't bring in the Book of Enoch to understand the context. Okay, and now this next passage that we're going to look at, this has left a lot of readers speculating about the circumstances, and this is a good point. Let me pull that up. Going slow. Okay, Jude verse 6, or Jude chapter 1 verse 6, it says, "And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day." Okay, that's important too, because now it gives us a brief look at the fallen angels. Okay, but most people, if they didn't know what was written in the Book of Enoch, they would assume that Jude was referring to maybe the initial fall of Satan or something like that. I don't know. There's really not much to go by if you don't have the context of the Book of Enoch. Okay, but what the Book of Enoch does, it gives us that backstory so we can read the Book of Jude and understand what it's talking about. Because if people read through the Book of Jude and they don't know what's in the Book of Enoch, and they say that they understand everything he's talking about, they're probably lying. Because throughout the scriptures, we don't have the details that we have with the Book of Enoch. Okay, I mean, it should speak pretty loudly that those first two passages, when we compared those, that they were identical. All right. Okay, so yeah, it's favorable to the Book of Enoch. It provides us with the foundation of the same event, which is what I have written there in my notes. Now let's look at this. Is my screen still big? Okay. And I asked the angel of peace. This is Enoch chapter 54, verses 4 through 5. It says, and I asked the angel of peace who went with me, saying, these chains, oh, darn it, these chain instruments, for whom are they being prepared? And he said to me, these are being prepared for the hosts of Azazel or Azazel. I've heard it pronounced both ways, so that they may take them and throw them into the lowest part of hell, and they will cover their jaws with rough stones, as the Lord of spirits commanded. Okay. I'll shrink it back down a little bit. So that's pretty big too. Through this passage, we begin to see a glimpse of an event that occurred at some point in history, all right? An event that Jude was so passionate about that he made sure to include this notation in his tiny little letter. And that should speak volumes that Jude only had a few brief words to leave to the church. I've heard a few people bring this point out, is that Jude didn't have much to say. But what he did have to say, he referenced the Book of Enoch. He talked about an event during the early years, during the timeline of Genesis. And Jude was referring to the same event that led to the deluge of Noah's time, which is a topic that I'm going to get into in some following videos, okay? How do we know this? How do we know that he's talking about that event? Well, if we go on, there's another New Testament writer, Peter. He was also influenced by the Book of Enoch, and his words correspond with Jude's by offering further details about this same dreadful event. Okay, so let's take a look at what Peter has to say. Okay, here we go. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. That's in the second epistle of Peter, second chapter, verses 4 and 5. And in his first epistle, here's what he says in chapter 3. By which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison, which sometime were disobedient, when once the long suffering of God waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was preparing, wherein few, that is, 8 souls, were saved by water. All right, so that gives us an even closer look. All right. And it's pretty intriguing that Peter shared the same, that he shared that same inspiration, or what he demonstrated that same inspiration anyway, that Jude did. His letters just, that made up his heritage. That core belief, that core understanding that everyone just knew back then. This event during Noah's day was a big part of their understanding. All right. And it should make us question whether or not we have had the proper teaching about this in the churches about the days of Noah. Because, it was a big enough deal that they were writing about it during the first century to the churches. They both spoke about the consequences of the angels who would be held in chains of darkness, waiting for judgment. All right. But what's even more affirmative, this is cool. And I'm going to end on this point, is that I still have a little bit more to go. The sin that these angels committed that deserved this judgment, both Peter and Jude, they equate these sins to the acts of Sodom and Gomorrah. What led to? Let me pull that up. Okay, So in Jude verse 7, he writes, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. And then Peter writes in his second epistle, chapter 2, verse 6, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making them an ensample unto those that after should live ungodly. All right, so there we have this comparison. These men, from what they understood, there was a dreadful event that occurred in ancient times, an event that impacted both writers, Peter and Jude. It impacted them enough to revisit that event when they were writing in their epistles. And they compared the sins of the angels to the things that were going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. And so if that's not enough, and this is what I was going to end on, was comparing some of Christ's words to the Book of Enoch, because a lot of people don't know Christ did reference the Book of Enoch, okay? And a lot of people are familiar with this passage, but they don't know where it's drawn from, okay? The Sadducees, they approached Yeshua wanting to know his thoughts on marriage after the resurrection, and then he responded. Oh, let me pull it up. Okay, it's this top half right here, this top portion in Matthew chapter 22, verse 29 through 30. He says to the Sadducees, he says, you're in error because you do not know the scriptures or the power of God. At the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven. Okay, and I've had a lot of people use this passage to tell me that, well, angels couldn't have united with humans, because right here Jesus said we will be like the angels in heaven who don't marry and stuff. So, well, they have it backwards. Really, they have it backwards. The angels weren't designed to unite with women. The angels that came down pre-flood in the days of Jared, they rebelled against their design. They rebelled against God. Here we have a supernatural class of angels a band of angels basically just rebelled. They came down and they united with human women. And what people do here is they put limits on what is possible in the supernatural realm. So the angels weren't designed to unite with women. They did it because they were rebelling against God. Oh, they're very capable. They're capable. It's funny how Christians today can believe in demon possession, believe in different things in the supernatural world, what's possible, what's not. They believe Satan has the power to do a lot of different things. But then when it comes to this topic, they don't believe that certain things in the supernatural are possible. Well, listen to this. This is a big point. This is what I'm going to end on, is that it's interesting that Christ would first, he addresses their ignorance of what he considered scripture, okay? He says, you do not know the scriptures. Well, what are the scriptures that he's talking about? Well, there's not one place in the Old Testament where what he's talking about here, there's not one place in the Old Testament that it's mentioned about the angels being given in marriage, and not whether they can marry or not, will be like the angels. Okay, so what are these scriptures that he's talking about? Well, you guessed it, it's none other than the Book of Enoch. Look at this passage here, and this is drawn from Enoch chapter 15, verses 2 through 7. It's a little bit to go over, but it says, "And go say to the watchers of heaven." The watchers, they are the angels that we're talking about here. The angels who rebelled against God, who came to unite with human women, okay? So he's saying, "Go say to the watchers of heaven, who have sent thee to intercede for them." Enoch was their interceder. "You should intercede for men, and not men for you. Wherefore have you left the high, holy, and eternal heaven, and lain with women, and defiled yourself with the daughters of men, and taken to yourselves wives, and done like the children of earth, and begotten giants as your sons?" So what they did was, here for a time, the mankind was created in God's image, and everything was good. Humans reproducing humans, and it was good. Their blood was undefiled. I mean, their DNA was the way God created them. And that's why this was a big deal, because these angels, they left their habitat and they came down to earth, united with women, and that's what produced giants, okay? Now, if you're one of those people who reads through Genesis 6 and you say the sons of God united with the daughters of men and produced giants, well, you have to realize that, do you really believe that humans mating with humans produced giants? Because up until this point, everything God created was good. He designed humans, and they were reproducing, having humans. Then all of a sudden, they produced giants. Well, how did that happen? People don't even question this. Well, here's how it happened. The Book of Enoch fills that in. It identifies those sons of God as the angels. And so in the book of Job, they're identified as angels. The sons of God are angels. You can do a word study. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, because I do go over this in another chapter. But let's continue. Let's get back to what Christ is talking about. These are the highlights of the New Testament, okay? He's talking to the Pharisees, to the Sadducees, telling them that, the angels were not designed to marry. And this is where he's getting his information from. But in the context of that, it says, "And though you were holy," this is in Enoch, okay? "And though you were holy, spiritual, living the eternal life," talking about the angels, "you have defiled yourselves with the blood of women, and have begotten children with the blood of flesh. And as the children of men have lusted after the flesh and blood, as those also do who die and perish. Therefore have I given them wives also, that they might impregnate them and beget children by them, that thus nothing might be wanting to them on earth. But you were formerly spiritual, living the eternal life, and immortal for all generations of the world. And therefore have I not appointed wives for you? For as for the spiritual ones of heaven, in heaven is their dwelling." Okay, so no. The angels were not designed to have wives. They rebelled against God and came and produced giants with human women. Okay? So there's no question whether or not that passage aligns with what Christ is talking about. That's the only reference that in the texts that we have that he could have been referring to, okay? It is a seamless parallel, all right, to the Book of Enoch, what Christ was talking about to the Sadducees. And through this example, Christ demonstrates one of the most powerful advocacies of this ancient text. It's more than a simple test of legitimacy, okay? The context of this passage reveals the central theme of the days of Noah. It bears witness to a lot of the lost information that was commonly understood by Christ and his followers. So above all, their understanding, the writers of the New Testament, and that's not all. The writer is, it wasn't just Christ in this event talking to the Sadducees. It was Matthew who wrote about this. Okay, he knew what he was talking about. Their understanding of the pre-flood world was irrefutably shaped by the Book of Enoch. Okay, that's all I got for this video. I just wanted to bring out those highlights because the next series that I want to talk about are those giants, the incursion, that event where the Watchers came down. So we're going to get into more of that later. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. It was longer than I wanted it to be. I wish I could make videos brief, so that people don't feel like they're just, because I know I want to watch quick videos too. But there it is. If you like this, please like it. It does my heart good to see people who are hitting that thumbs up, because I know I'm making a difference. And so if you liked it, give it a like and ask me some questions. I don't know everything. I'm basically just I'm sharing what I learned as a student. And that's what it is. I'm not trying to be a teacher. I want to teach people things that I learned, but I'm just sharing what I am learning as a student. Okay. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.